I wanted to get to sort of the side that we're not sure of yet about trails, which is what they can do for the state going forward. Indiana, let's face it, is a state that is known as having an overweight population, having air quality that's not the best in a number of places. Can trails help to mitigate the public health problems that Indiana has been so maligned for, especially in the last decade? Steve, your thoughts?
Now, there's a vein of thought in the trails community that if you build a trail, people will come to use them. And it's been my experience that I see that's actually true in a lot of places. However, there have been studies that show that just building a trail doesn't necessarily mean people will come out to use them. A lot of times people don't know where the trails are at and those kinds of things. That's why we've established what we call our Indiana Trails Inventory at the state level. And we document all of the trails around the state and post them on a website so that people can go in there and see where they live, see what trails are nearby, find out more information about those trails, and thereby get out and use them.
Jeff, I think Steve brings up an interesting point, which is access to these trails. What does your group find out about people's access to it in terms of both ease and understanding of access, and then understanding where they can go and how they can best make use of the actual span that they're about to cover on a trail?
Sure. One of the first steps that we take, or one of the first things that we find out when we interact with the community and work with them on trail plans, is that we need to broaden, oftentimes, the understanding and the conception of what a trail is. For some people, a trail is just a dirt path in the middle of the woods. Or it's a busy place in a downtown area, but trails can be very diverse, and even a single trail can have several different characteristics to it. And so in terms of access, helping people understand that they may have access to a trail in their downtown area, or they may have access to a trail in their neighborhood, or even in a park that they go to out of town. And as Mick referenced earlier, trails bring people together, and it brings nature together, and brings a host of other interests. So once we broaden that understanding and get to the point where they understand, where people understand all the multiple uses that trails can either provide or provide a gateway to, we usually see increased interest.
I'm glad you brought up the point about trails bringing people together. There are certainly good points to that, and there are certainly some somewhat scarier points to that. I'd like to start with Mick and go down the line and get a thought from each of you on the idea of keeping trails safe, especially where the Monon Trail in Indianapolis is concerned. There have been a number of somewhat high-profile violent crimes in the last year or two that have gotten a lot of media coverage, to the point where Indianapolis police officers, I think maybe even the chief, went on a bike ride on the trail earlier this year just to show people that they can be reassured that it is safe for them to be using these trails. Let's start in Bloomington. What does the city of Bloomington do to keep these trails safe? Because let's face it, some of them are in rural areas. They're away from where people and especially police officers might be. It's got to be a challenge.
It is, but first I'd say that it's uncharacteristically unfair to label a trail any more unsafe than a sidewalk, a street, or any other place people congregate or go from point A to point B. There's no statistics that prove that there's more crime or vandalism or anything else on a trail than there is anywhere else. It's just become a high focus of interest. What are we doing locally? We have Segway police, we have bicycle police, we have a little ATV presence on our trail system, we have lights on some segments of the trail. All of those things are great deterrents, but the best deterrent is use. The more people on a trail system, the less likely that anyone's going to attempt to do something that would cause harm or vandalize or do anything else negative on the trail. So we tell our users, you know, use common sense. Go with a buddy, go with a friend, go when the trail is actively in use. Don't go in the darkest, most unlit, most hidden place by yourself at the wrong time of day. And I think that's common sense people would use if they were walking downtown in any of our communities at a certain time of day or a certain time of night.
Steve, you said people are still trying to learn how best to use some trails as they are being expanded into more rural areas of the state. Is there enough use in these communities where trails are a new thing, that there is that sort of people presence that can help assist law enforcement to keep these trails safe, so you don't end up with the sort of media coverage that we've seen in Indianapolis over the last year?
Right. With a lot of these areas, a lot of them were abandoned railroad corridors, and they were places where people would hang out and either use them as dumping grounds or places to do illicit things. And now that we're putting trails in some of these areas, we're starting to see that having people out there using them for a recreational basis or whatever, transportation, that crime actually has gone down along these corridors. We have had some studies showing that.
Jeff, I wonder if your group has come up with or talked to people who have developed somewhat innovative ways to see that this sort of synergy exists, where you have a lot of people who try to use the trails, and at the same time you try to ensure that safety is paramount as well as use.
Well, one of the ways that we've done that in some communities is not just by encouraging use of the trail directly, but by helping the department or organization that is affiliated with the trail build partnerships in the community. And through that, through understanding the purpose of the trail and the location of the trail and all of the events and activities that can take place, it raises community awareness in general.
Give me just, in closing here, 15 seconds from each of you, and Mick, we'll start with you and go down the line. Give me either a big challenge that you think is facing trails or a positive step that you think that cities or people could take to see that they get more use going forward.
Well, the big challenge will be funding, as has been stated by everyone on the panel, including Eric on the phone interview. If federal funding dries up, it will become much more difficult to continue the momentum. However, on a positive side, as these trail systems have been built and are used by local citizens and citizens from all over our state and in the country, I would guess that the local politicians and our state folks that represent us will also see the importance that's placed back in their districts, and hopefully that funding will either be maintained or increased. And then the other big challenge, I think, is connecting everything, connecting the dots. The trail legs get built in certain ways and they're planned, but sometimes it's like a sidewalk that stops and you wonder where it's going to continue, and we'd like to make sure those connections continue.
All right, I apologize, but they're telling me we've run out of time, but my thanks to Mick and to Steve and to Jeff for being here. My thanks also to my co-host this evening, Sarah Whitmire. Sarah, thanks so much.
Thanks, Stan.
That is our show for tonight. Thanks to you for watching and listening, and please do visit our website. That is indianapublicmedia.org/infocus. You can send emails for next month's program to infocus@indiana.edu, and you can see portions of this show by visiting the website. Please do join us next month when our topic is education. Have a nice night.
Production support for In Focus is provided by Smithville, a locally owned business serving central and southern Indiana since 1922, with residential business internet, voice, and security services. Smithville, local pride, global technology. Information at smithville.net. The Herald Times featuring Hotline, every weekday where reporter Marcy Krebs answers your questions about local oddities and curiosities. Online at heraldtimes.com. Hoosier Energy, providing electricity for central and southern Indiana electric cooperatives and their member customers. Information at hepn.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you.